How many times have you ignored your gut feeling just to keep the peace? How often have you stayed silent when someone crossed a line thinking, it's family, what else can I do? Or maybe you've excused hurtful behavior with thoughts like, they didn't mean it, even when the sting lingered for days. Imagine this. Keeping toxic relationships is like holding onto a cactus and blaming your hand for bleeding. The harder you grip, the deeper it cuts, yet you still convince yourself it's not that bad. But here's the truth. Holding on isn't always the noble thing to do. Sometimes it's self-sabotage in disguise. Take a moment and think. Have you ever felt drained after spending time with certain people? Have you ignored the signs because walking away seemed unthinkable? Today, we'll confront these uncomfortable realities head-on. Today, we'll uncover 7 signs that it's time to cut ties, even with those closest to you. And trust me, the second last point will make you rethink everything. Let's dive in. If this resonates, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us in exploring how Stoic wisdom can transform your life. But before we dive in, pay attention to this story, which will help you better understand the wisdom in this material. The story of Sarah, the weight of unseen chains. In a lively town, surrounded by rolling hills and bustling markets, there lived a young woman named Sarah. She was known for her kindness and loyalty, always putting the needs of her family and friends before her own. But deep inside, Sarah often felt like she was carrying a heavy, invisible burden. Her sister Lisa constantly criticized her choices, her career, her friends, even her clothes. "You're wasting your life," Lisa would sneer. Sarah's best friend Rachel would only call when she needed help, disappearing when Sarah needed a shoulder to cry on. Even her cousin Mike, who stayed with her rent-free, made her feel guilty for setting small boundaries. "It's family," Sarah would whisper to herself every night. "You don't walk away from family or old friends. You endure." But the weight in her heart grew heavier with each passing day. One evening, as she sat by her window watching the sunset, Sarah spotted an old woman walking through the cobblestone street below. The woman carried a small cage, its door wide open, but the bird inside sat still, refusing to fly. Intrigued, Sarah approached her. "Why doesn't the bird leave if the door is open?" The woman looked up with kind eyes. "Sometimes we get so used to the cage that we forget we're meant to fly." Sarah felt a strange pang in her chest. "But what if the cage is where you're supposed to stay? What if leaving means you're being selfish?" The woman chuckled softly and handed Sarah a small, polished mirror. "Look into this, and it will show you the truth." Curious yet hesitant, Sarah returned home and held the mirror to her face. To her shock, the reflection didn't show her face. It showed chains wrapped around her, tightening each time Lisa's voice echoed, Rachel's demands replayed, or Mike's guilt-tripping words rang in her mind. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. The mirror whispered gently, "Not all chains are made of steel. Some are made of guilt, fear, and obligation. To break free, you must first see them for what they are." The next day, Sarah decided to make a change. When Lisa called to criticize her, Sarah calmly replied, "Lisa, I love you, but I won't let your words define me anymore." She hung up before the argument could begin. When Rachel called asking for help yet again, Sarah said, "I can't this time, Rachel. I need to focus on myself today." Rachel's silence on the other end spoke louder than words. And when Mike started another guilt trip about his rent, Sarah looked him in the eye and said, "You need to find your own space. I can't carry this weight anymore." With each boundary she set, Sarah felt lighter, as if the chains were falling away one by one. She realized that love and loyalty didn't mean sacrificing her own peace. Weeks later, Sarah walked through the same cobblestone street, hoping to find the old woman and thank her. But the street was empty, and the birdcage was gone. In its place, she found a note etched into the stone. True love and respect never demand you to clip your wings. Fly, even if it means leaving the cage behind. Sometimes, the hardest decisions are the most necessary. Holding on to toxic relationships, even with family or friends, can weigh us down and prevent us from living fully. Sarah's story teaches us that it's okay to walk away when a relationship no longer respects your peace or values your worth. Cutting ties isn't selfish, it's self-love. Before we begin with the first lesson, if you find these videos helpful, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated on the latest content. Let's begin. Number 1, they constantly drain your energy. Have you ever felt like you're a well that's running dry, each drop of your energy slipping away with every encounter? It's like you're pouring water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you give, it never fills up. That's the feeling when you're around people who constantly drain your energy. And here's the truth. It doesn't matter if they're family or friends. Sometimes those closest to us are the ones sucking us dry without even realizing it. Imagine your life is like a glowing candle. Every relationship should be like a breeze, gently keeping the flame flickering brightly, encouraging you to burn longer and stronger. But some relationships are like heavy winds that blow too hard, threatening to snuff out your light. They come into your life, leaving you feeling extinguished, as if you've given everything you have, and yet they ask for more. Now think about those people who have a knack for draining you. You know who they are, always demanding more time, more attention, and more of your emotional energy. But when you need someone, where are they? Disappearing into the background like shadows. These are the people who take without ever giving back. At first, you might think it's no big deal. After all, they're family, or they've been your friends for years. But slowly, the drain begins. Like a leak in your life that you've ignored for too long, it empties you bit by bit. The Stoics understood the importance of protecting your energy. Seneca, in his wisdom, said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." What does that mean for you? It means that by holding on to draining relationships out of obligation or fear, you're allowing yourself to be depleted, not because of their actions, but because of how much power you've given them over your emotions. It's time to stop fueling that fire. But how do you cut ties without feeling guilty, especially when it's family or old friends? The Stoics would remind you that you can't control how others behave, but you can control how much of your energy you allow them to take. Setting boundaries is like building a wall of protection, and it's essential for your well-being. It's not about pushing people away. It's about protecting yourself from being hollowed out. You don't have to carry the weight of others' energy crises. Your energy is a sacred resource, and you don't owe it to anyone who refuses to respect your boundaries. The more you let these people drain you, the more you're saying yes to their chaos and no to your own peace. Take back control of your life. Like Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Be the one who protects their peace, their energy, and their mental space. You deserve it." So the next time you feel that heavy exhaustion after interacting with someone, take a moment to reflect. Is this relationship helping me grow, or is it depleting me? If it's the latter, it's time to stop feeding the fire. Protect your light, because you can't pour from an empty cup. Number 2, they disrespect your boundaries. Have you ever felt like your boundaries are made of paper, delicate and easy to tear down, while the other person's requests come crashing through like a stampede of elephants? It's like they've got a wrecking ball aimed straight at your peace, and no matter how many times you rebuild your walls, they keep coming back to break them down. That's the first sign that it's time to reassess the relationship. If someone disrespects your boundaries, it's not just a sign of their disregard for your space, it's a signal that they don't value you. And if you keep letting them, your peace will vanish piece by piece until you're left standing in a storm with no shelter. Sound familiar? Imagine this. You're a well-guarded castle with high walls, a moat, and a drawbridge that only you control. Your boundaries are those walls, and your peace is the treasure locked inside. But here comes that person, like a relentless invader, trying to cross the drawbridge, knocking on the gates with their requests. At first, you push them away with politeness, but over time, they wear you down. You lower your drawbridge again and again, until one day the gates open and they stroll right in without asking for permission. And once they're inside, they trample on your peace as if it were nothing more than dust on the floor. Now, let's think about how this happens. You didn't start off as an open door for everyone to walk through. It began innocently enough. Small compromises, little requests that didn't seem like a big deal. But slowly, those little requests started to pile up, like bricks being laid one after another until they built a wall around your peace. The problem is, that wall isn't made of stone. It's made of your own lack of resistance. And every time you allow someone to cross a boundary, you're weakening that wall, brick by brick. The Stoics would tell you that your inner peace is like a garden, and your boundaries are the fence that keeps unwanted weeds from taking root. The moment you let someone step over that fence, disrespecting your space, is the moment those weeds begin to creep in, choking your serenity. You must defend that garden at all costs, or else you'll be left with nothing but chaos where peace once grew. Let me share a story that might paint this picture more clearly. There was once a man named Aelius, a wise and peaceful man who had built a beautiful garden, a metaphor for his life, filled with calm, joy, and self-respect. But there was one person, Tiberius, who kept wandering into Aelius's garden without asking. He would trample the flowers, ignore the boundaries, and take whatever he wanted without giving anything in return. Aelius tried to gently nudge Tiberius away, but the more he did, the more Tiberius kept coming back. One day Aelius went to an old sage and asked for advice. The sage looked at him and said, "Your garden is not a public park. You are the gardener, and it's your responsibility to protect it. If you allow others to walk all over your boundaries, your garden will wither, and it will no longer be a place of peace." Aelius took the sage's words to heart and decided to protect his garden from the weeds of disrespect. From that day forward, he built stronger fences, planted new seeds of self-respect, and made sure that Tiberius and others knew that his peace was not for sale. He had learned that boundaries were not walls to hide behind, but shields to protect his inner world, and with that protection, his peace flourished once more. The moral of the story? Your boundaries are the gates to your inner sanctuary. If someone constantly knocks without respecting them, it's a sign to stand firm. Setting boundaries isn't about being closed off. It's about knowing that your peace is valuable. You don't need to let anyone treat your space like a free-for-all. So the next time someone tries to push past your limits, remember, your boundaries aren't just lines in the sand. They're the foundation of your peace. Don't let anyone bulldoze over them. If they can't respect your limits, it might be time to show them the door. If you've watched the video this far, make sure to comment "Thank God" to let us know you're with us. Number 3, their actions are always selfish. Have you ever found yourself in a relationship where it feels like you're the one always giving, yet they're the only one benefiting? It's like you're both standing in a room, but every time you try to share the light, they pull the curtain back and shine it only on themselves. That, my friend, is a clear sign that their actions are always selfish. And when this becomes the norm, it's time to ask, is this relationship truly mutual? Or are you just a resource to be drained? Imagine your relationship is a river. At first it flows freely, with both of you sharing the water. But over time, the flow becomes one-sided. They start taking the water, not just to drink, but to irrigate their own crops, leaving you with nothing. They're always there when they need something, but when the tables are turned, they're nowhere to be found. You're left standing on the banks, watching them use the river for their own gain, while you're left thirsty. At first, it might feel like small sacrifices, but the imbalance grows. A favor here, a request there, and slowly they start expecting more from you without offering anything in return. Every action they take revolves around their own interests, while yours become an afterthought, if they even make it into their consciousness at all. The Stoics taught us that we must act according to our values and only give our energy to things we can control. If someone's actions are constantly selfish, they're draining your energy and you're letting it happen. It's not about being nice, it's about recognizing when you're being taken advantage of. A healthy relationship should be a two-way street, not a one-way toll road where you're the only one paying. Let me share a story to put this into perspective. There was a man named Silvanus, known for his generosity. He always helped others, gave freely of his time, and was a dependable friend. But there was one man, Lucius, who seemed to only take from him. Whenever Lucius needed help, Silvanus was there, offering his support. But when Silvanus faced a problem, Lucius wasn't there to help. Instead, Lucius took, and took, without ever offering anything in return. Silvanus grew frustrated and turned to an old sage for advice. "Why do I give and give, but never receive anything in return?" he asked. The sage responded, "Silvanus, you are like a river that flows endlessly but never reaches the sea. You give without receiving, and soon the river will run dry." Silvanus realized that his relationship with Lucius was one-sided. From that day on, he stopped allowing Lucius to take without giving. He set clear boundaries and learned to recognize when he was being used. He understood that relationships need mutual respect and balance. The moral of the story: if someone's actions are always selfish, it's time to reassess. You deserve relationships that offer reciprocity, not those where you're simply a tool for someone's personal gain. So, the next time you find yourself giving and giving, ask yourself, are they really interested in you, or are they just using you? Remember, you're not here to fill their cup while yours runs empty. Protect your peace, set boundaries, and know when to walk away from relationships that leave you feeling drained. Number 4, they bring out the worst in you. Have you ever found yourself acting in ways that don't reflect who you truly are, simply because of someone else's influence? It's like you're walking through life with a mirror that shows not your best self, but the darker side, the one that reacts with anger, frustration, or defensiveness. If someone brings out the worst in you, it's a clear sign that this relationship may be pulling you away from your true nature. So ask yourself, is this relationship helping me grow, or is it making me shrink? Imagine you're a calm lake, peaceful and still. But every time you're around this person, they throw rocks into the water, creating ripples of chaos that disturb your serenity. What once was peaceful becomes a storm, with emotions churning uncontrollably. Instead of bringing out the best in you, they seem to unleash negativity. And before you know it, you no longer recognize the reflection in your own waters. How did it get here? At first, it wasn't so bad. Maybe they said something you didn't like, or their actions annoyed you. But like a slow leak in a boat, those small incidents started to add up. They became triggers. Things you never thought would get under your skin suddenly do. Over time, their presence makes you react in ways that feel out of control. You're quick to snap, defensive, or say things you regret. The peaceful, calm person you once were feels like someone you've lost. The Stoics taught us that we are the masters of our own emotions. While we can't control others, we can control how we respond. If someone consistently brings out your worst self, it's a sign that their influence is toxic. While it's normal to be affected by others, it's your responsibility to notice when a relationship is taking you away from the best version of yourself. Here's a story that might help you see it more clearly. There was a man named Dorian, known for his calm and wise nature. He met a man named Corvus, who seemed charming at first. But over time, Dorian started noticing that every time he spent time with Corvus, he would act out of character, snapping at others, becoming defensive, and saying things he didn't mean. Dorian was confused and went to an old philosopher for guidance. "Why am I like this when I'm with Corvus? Why do I act in ways I don't want to?" he asked. The philosopher replied, "You are like a tree that grows in fertile soil, yet someone is pulling at your roots. Corvus is not forcing you to react this way. It's your choice to let him disturb your nature. You must learn to remove yourself from the influence that brings out the worst in you, or you risk losing who you truly are." Dorian took this advice to heart. He began distancing himself from Corvus and focused on nurturing his own peace. He realized that some relationships, no matter how close, can pull you away from your best self if you allow it. By stepping back, Dorian reclaimed his inner calm and peace. He learned that true relationships support you in growing and being your best self, not in making you someone you don't recognize. The moral here? If someone consistently brings out the worst in you, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that their influence is toxic. Relationships should uplift you, not drag you down. So, the next time you feel yourself reacting negatively around someone, take a step back. Ask yourself, is this relationship helping me become the best version of myself? Or is it turning me into someone I don't want to be? Protect your peace, because you are the captain of your own ship. Number 5, they don't respect your values. Have you ever shared something deeply important to you, only to have it brushed off or dismissed by someone you trusted? Maybe it's your belief system, your personal goals, or the principles you live by, and instead of supporting you, they ridicule or disregard them. It stings, doesn't it? When someone doesn't respect your values, it's not just an insult. It's a sign that they don't truly respect you. Values are like the foundation of a house. They give structure and stability to who you are. When someone disregards your values, it's as though they're chipping away at that foundation, leaving you questioning your worth and your boundaries. Stoic philosophy teaches us that our values are the core of our character, and no one should be allowed to trample on them. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Your values define you, and those who dismiss them have no place in your life. So why do some people disrespect your values? It's often because they don't understand them, or worse, they feel threatened by them. People who lack direction in their own lives may try to undermine your principles because it reminds them of what they're missing. Or they simply want to assert control, testing your boundaries to see how far they can push you. The Stoics remind us that these actions are a reflection of their character, not yours. Imagine your values as a compass guiding you through life. When someone dismisses them, it's like they're trying to steal that compass, leaving you lost and unsure of your direction. But here's the truth: no one can take your compass unless you hand it over. Respect for your values starts with you. So, how do you handle people who don't respect your values? First, stand firm. Be clear about what matters to you, and don't feel the need to justify or defend your principles. Remember, your values are yours to protect. Second, observe their actions. If someone continually disrespects your boundaries, it's a sign they don't truly value you. Lastly, don't hesitate to create distance. Sometimes the best way to protect your values is to remove people who challenge them. Your values are a reflection of your soul. They guide your decisions, shape your character, and define your life. Never compromise them for someone who doesn't respect them. Protect your compass and let it lead you toward the people and places that truly align with who you are. If any of the points resonated with you, be sure to comment, "Thank God I learned it," to share your thoughts and let us know how it connected. Number 6, they manipulate or gaslight you. Have you ever had a conversation where you walk away feeling confused, doubting your own reality, or questioning whether you're the one overreacting? It's like you've been in a mental maze, trying to find your way out, only to realize that the person you're speaking to is the one holding the map. Except the map leads to nowhere. If someone manipulates or gaslights you, it's a clear sign that this relationship isn't just toxic. It's designed to make you lose your sense of self. Imagine this: you're walking down a road, confident in the direction you're heading, but suddenly someone pulls you aside and tells you that you've been going the wrong way all along, even though you're sure you haven't. They twist the facts, distort the truth, and leave you second-guessing everything you knew. That's gaslighting. It's a form of manipulation where the goal is to make you doubt your reality, turning you into a puppet without strings, constantly dependent on their version of the truth. How did this happen? It starts small, like a whisper in the back of your mind. Did I really say that? Was that really what happened? Slowly, those moments pile up, and before you know it, you're questioning everything, even your own memories and feelings. Gaslighting is like erosion. It wears away your self-confidence, leaving you with nothing but uncertainty and confusion. The Stoics taught us that our peace and clarity come from within. We must protect our minds from external forces that seek to manipulate or distort our thoughts. If someone is gaslighting you, they're trying to control your reality, and that is an assault on your peace. You are the master of your own truth, and no one has the right to rewrite it. Let's take a look at a story that might clarify this. There was a man named Ariston who was known for his wisdom and calm. One day, he began to notice that his friend, Decimus, would twist the facts of their conversations, making Ariston feel like he was losing his mind. If Ariston brought up a concern, Decimus would deny it ever happened, or worse, accuse Ariston of imagining things. "You must be remembering it wrong," Decimus would say. Over time, Ariston began to feel unsure of himself, questioning everything he thought was true. Feeling unsettled, Ariston went to an old sage for advice. He asked, "Why do I feel like I'm going crazy when I'm around Decimus? Why am I always second-guessing myself?" The sage replied, "Ariston, you are like a ship at sea. If the waves are calm, you sail smoothly. But if someone constantly disturbs your course, you will lose sight of your destination. Protect your mind, for no one can steer your ship except you." From that day on, Ariston began to recognize the manipulation. He stopped engaging with Decimus in ways that allowed him to twist his reality. He reclaimed his own truth and restored his peace by trusting his own mind and perceptions. The moral of the story? If someone manipulates or gaslights you, it's a clear sign that they're trying to control your perception of reality. Protect your mind and trust your instincts. Relationships should be based on mutual respect and honesty, not manipulation. So the next time you find yourself questioning your own reality, stop. Ask yourself, are they manipulating me? Are they trying to distort the truth to make me doubt myself? Trust your own mind. No one has the right to rewrite your story. Number 7, they take no accountability. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where things go wrong and the person you're with refuses to acknowledge their role? It's like being in a boat with someone who's drilling holes in the hull, but when the water starts rising, they point at everyone else, blaming the storm or the waves for the sinking ship. If someone refuses to take accountability, it's a glaring sign that this relationship isn't built on mutual respect or trust. It's built on deflection and excuses. Imagine this: you're working on a team, trying to build something great. But every time something goes wrong, one person stands back and points fingers. They never step up to say, "I could have done better," or "I made a mistake." Instead, they hide behind excuses and shift the blame to others. In this environment, you're left carrying the weight of their actions while they continue to avoid responsibility. How did this happen? It started with small things. Maybe they were late to an important meeting and shrugged it off. Maybe they took credit for something that wasn't theirs or ignored their share of the work. Over time, those small acts of irresponsibility piled up, and now, when something goes wrong, they act as if it's never their fault. It's a pattern of behavior that leaves you frustrated, confused, and exhausted. The Stoics believed that we should own our actions and decisions, both the good and the bad. Accountability is not just about owning up to mistakes, it's about growth, learning, and taking responsibility for our own lives. If someone consistently refuses to take accountability, they're not just avoiding blame, they're avoiding growth, and that kind of behavior is toxic. Here's a story to illustrate this point. There was a man named Lucius who was known for his leadership and wisdom. He worked with a man named Gaius, who was always quick to take credit when things went well, but never took responsibility when things went wrong. If a project failed, Gaius would claim it was the team's fault, the timing was wrong, or the conditions weren't favorable. But he never looked at his own actions and asked, "What could I have done better?" Frustrated, Lucius went to an old philosopher and asked, "Why does Gaius never take responsibility for his actions? Why does he always pass the blame to others?" The philosopher replied, "Lucius, you cannot change the actions of others, but you can choose who you allow to walk beside you. A man who refuses to own his mistakes is a man who is not willing to grow. If you are to walk a path of wisdom and peace, choose your companions carefully." Lucius realized the truth in the sage's words. He decided that he could no longer work alongside someone who refused to take accountability. From that day on, he chose to surround himself with people who embraced their mistakes and learned from them, knowing that true growth comes from ownership, not deflection. The moral of the story? If someone refuses to take accountability, they are not just avoiding blame, they are avoiding growth. You cannot grow with someone who is constantly shifting the blame. Accountability is the foundation of trust and maturity in any relationship. So the next time someone refuses to own their mistakes, remember this: accountability is the key to self-improvement. If they can't take responsibility for their actions, it's time to reconsider the relationship. You deserve people who are willing to grow with you, not hide behind excuses.